At the Illinois legislature, they have been advancing bills, one that advanced out of both the House and Senate, separate bills, but simply the same thing, dealing with manipulated digital content like deep fakes. If you're not familiar with deep fakes, pretty interesting technology. It's hilarious sometimes, but you could see how it could also be abused by pasting somebody's face onto a pornographic video and making it look like it's them, but then that can be used for nefarious reasons, from blackmail to harassment and a whole host of other things. So some legislators want to make sure that people have the right to sue and to have the ability to take certain content down. But one thing that we all know is once it's on the internet, it's on the internet forever. But there's questions about whether or not that's going to impact freedom of speech. Here's State Senator Jill Tracy with her concerns about a bill that could, if not defined clearly enough, impact political speech.
Occurs to me that if you've ever seen some of our political ads, those are intended to sway voters. And so I'm wondering, is that your intent, that we would also allow a cause of action for a candidate?
So there's also questions about, parody and even news outfits. So we'll see how that measure advances and if it changes, because as we heard also, there's a bunch of different bills moving through all over the place that you get people who are looking to advance things, even though it's not really completely ripe yet.
There will be an amendment, so I do plan to hold it on second.
Now, we are working on an amendment to omit the Equity Commission part, since I passed that last year.
So I did feel that there's going to be an amendment.
So the amendment is going to actually remove...
Thank you, Chairwoman. I do have an amendment.
So, a lot of amendments moving, a lot of things happening at the State House. One bill that did pass out of a House committee is a bill that was championed by the Illinois Secretary of State, Alexi Giannoulias, and it deals with books in libraries and whether or not some libraries might be prohibiting certain books. And he wants to make sure that books are indeed available at public libraries. Here he is talking about the importance of making sure that we don't ban books and how it's being handled in other states neighboring Illinois, and how Illinois should move forward when it comes to books and having them available in libraries.
Books that include subject matters like the COVID-19 pandemic, acclaimed authors like Toni Morrison, best-selling novels like The Kite Runner, and classics like To Kill a Mockingbird have been challenged right here in the land of Lincoln. In neighboring Missouri, lawmakers have empowered prosecutors to arrest and jail school librarians who fail to monitor books. Right next door, legislators in Indiana are considering similar measures. This represents an alarming phenomenon that is having a chilling effect on our democracy. That's why I've drafted legislation to ensure that book banning will have no place in Illinois. Under this legislation, if books are banned, Illinois libraries will not be eligible for library grants from this office. More specifically, under House Bill 2789, Illinois libraries must adhere to the American Library Association's Bill of Rights in order to receive state funding from my office. This right to read legislation will help remove the pressure that librarians have had to endure from extremist groups like the Proud Boys, who have targeted some of our libraries. Let me be clear. These efforts to ban reading materials have nothing to do with books. They are about restricting the freedom of ideas that certain individuals disagree with and believe that no one else should think or have access to.
Well, and I think it's important to also note this does go both ways. There are efforts to restrict reading or publishing of materials that some people say is misinformation or some people allege is false. I mean, just look at the past 3 years of the COVID pandemic. How much censorship was there on the side of, Dr. Anthony Fauci saying you can't criticize me because I'm science. And then you find out, well, indeed, the lab leak theory is probably the most likely theory. And there was money going from tax dollars to fund, advanced research into, increasing the severity of viruses. So listen, it does go both ways. Yes, all materials need to be available. Yes, the anarchist cookbook. Is it a controversial book? Absolutely, but it's an important book. What about, how to make deep fakes? Is there a book about that? Another thing that's interesting too is, what about ghost gun data? The digital files to allow for you to put into a computer and print a gun. Should that be banned and not available at public libraries? These are all really important questions that should be addressed when talking about this particular issue.
From the Fly SPI Studios, take the easy way out.